She thought her best friend was living the dream. A rich husband, luxury cars, a perfect home. Until envy pushed her to take her place. And she discovered, too late, the dark secret her friend had been hiding all along. Sandra and Anita grew up the way only true childhood friends do, sharing one life between two bodies. They lived in the same crowded compound in Surrey, Lagos, running barefoot between buckets of water, plaiting each other's hair on lazy Saturday mornings, laughing until their sides hurt. Sandra was calm and gentle, the kind of girl who thought carefully before she spoke. Anita was fire, loud, dramatic, restless, always dreaming beyond the narrow street they grew up on. She wanted more. More money. More attention. A bigger life than Lagos traffic and generator noise. Yet despite their differences, they moved like sisters. If Anita was around, Sandra wasn't far behind. If Sandra cried, Anita fought on her behalf. If Anita failed a test, Sandra stayed awake all night helping her study. Their mothers would shake their heads and laugh. These two, they'd say. Born in different houses, raised by one heart. Growing up didn't break them. At night, under the slow whir of the ceiling fan, they whispered their dreams into the darkness. Sandra wanted a simple life, a small business, a peaceful home, a man who loved her sincerely. Anita wanted everything else, a big house, expensive cars, a wealthy husband, trips outside Nigeria. Still, they held on to each other tightly. In their final year at university, Sandra began catering small events to support herself. That was how she met Victor, a handsome, well-dressed businessman who ordered food for a corporate function. He praised her cooking, then her smile, then her kindness. Before Sandra could understand what was happening, she was falling in love. Victor felt like answered prayers. Calm. Respectful. Focused. He brought her lunch without warning, helped her carry heavy trays, waited after lectures so she wouldn't walk home alone. Sandra couldn't believe God had sent her a man like this. When she introduced him to Anita, Anita hugged her tightly, beaming. Finally, she said. Our Sandra has found love. And at first, she meant it. But when Victor proposed, just months after graduation, Anita felt something she didn't want to name. A tight pinch in her chest. A quiet whisper she tried to silence. The proposal was perfect. Candlelight dinner in Victoria Island. Roses covering the table. A silver ring sparkling like sunlight on water. Their wedding became the talk of Lagos, elegant, classy, overflowing with love. Sandra's gown looked like it came straight from a bridal magazine. Victor stood tall beside her, smiling with pride. Guests whispered, Sandra has entered enjoyment. This is marriage. Anita stood beside her as maid of honor, smiling brightly for photos. But deep inside her chest, something twisted, not hatred, just a longing she pretended not to feel. After the wedding, Sandra moved into Victor's mansion, a white duplex with wide windows, shining floors, and luxury cars lined up like trophies. When Anita visited for the first time, she was speechless. This was the life she had always prayed for. Sandra welcomed her warmly, showing her the living room, the modern kitchen, the walk-in closet filled with lace, gold jewelry, and foreign perfumes. Anita hugged her tightly, smiling, while something warm and bitter rose inside her. This should have been my life. But she swallowed the thought. At that point, her envy was still small. Still soft. Still pretending to be admiration. Sandra, meanwhile, believed her marriage would be everything she dreamed of, peaceful, loving, blessed. Victor treated her gently, opened doors for her, bought her little gifts just to see her smile. Then, slowly, quietly, the cracks began to appear. It started with the nights Victor didn't come home. Sandra would sit alone in the living room, waiting. Dinner grew cold on the table as her eyes drifted again and again to the wall clock. Midnight passed. Then 1 a.m. Then 2. When Victor finally stumbled in, sometimes at 2, sometimes close to 3 in the morning, he smelled of alcohol. and often, of another woman's perfume. Whenever Sandra asked softly, "Victor, where were you?" he would glare at her as if she had committed a crime. One night, her voice shook as she whispered, "You didn't pick my calls." The slap came so fast she didn't feel it at first. Her ears rang. Her vision blurred. She stood frozen, staring at him in disbelief and fear. Then, just as suddenly, Victor's anger disappeared. He cupped her face gently, his voice turning soft. "Sandra, I'm sorry. You provoked me. You know I hate nagging." He kissed her forehead. The next morning, he handed her a brand new iPhone and a designer handbag, worth more than her entire rent before marriage. That became the rhythm of her life. He hit. He apologized. He bought gifts. She forgave. And then he hit again. The more violent he became, the more expensive the gifts grew, as though money could erase fear and bruises. Sandra wanted to tell someone, her mother, her sister, even Anita. But shame wrapped around her throat like a tight fist every time she tried to speak. People admired her marriage. They envied her life. They called her lucky. How could she admit that the man who bought her diamonds also left fingerprints on her skin? So she learned to hide. Concealer for her cheek. Powder for her jaw. Long sleeves for her arms. She smiled through the pain, posted happy pictures online, and pretended everything was perfect. And everyone believed her. Especially Anita. Whenever Anita visited, she walked through the house like a tourist in a luxury museum, admiring the chandeliers, the white marble floors, the fresh flowers, the foreign perfumes arranged neatly on Sandra's dressing table. Victor always greeted her warmly. "Ah, Anita, you're welcome. Hope traffic wasn't too bad." She would blush and laugh. "Thank you, sir." Sandra sat beside them, smiling, hiding the swelling on her palm where Victor had squeezed too hard the night before. Slowly, Anita's admiration turned into longing. At night, she lay awake thinking, Sandra has everything. A mansion. Cars. Money. A man who pampers her. If I had a husband like Victor, she told herself, I would never complain. I would worship him. She didn't know the truth. Sandra never let her see it. So when Anita compared her own life, the small apartment, unreliable boyfriends, endless hustle, envy began to grow like a weed in her heart. At first, she fought it. It's just admiration, she told herself. But admiration became desire. Desire became fantasy. Fantasy became bitterness. She doesn't deserve this life, Anita began to think. She takes it for granted. One night, she whispered to herself, if that man were mine, I would treat him like gold. From then on, Anita became deliberate. She dressed carefully whenever she visited, fitted dresses, subtle perfume, jewelry that caught the light. She laughed louder around Victor, touched her hair when she spoke, praised him endlessly. Victor, you're such a responsible man. Victor, you treat Sandra so well. Victor, any woman would be blessed to have you. Sandra didn't notice the change. She was too busy hiding bruises. But Victor noticed. Not because he desired Anita, but because he could sense her hunger. Sometimes, when Anita wasn't looking, he smirked. Anita tried harder. She sat closer to him, offered to help with errands, leaned in during conversations. She even began posting pictures from Sandra's house with captions like, "Marriage is sweet when you marry your best friend." She wasn't talking about Sandra. She was talking about Victor. Yet no matter how hard she tried, Victor never looked at her with interest. At most, he offered polite attention. Nothing more. And that rejection cut deeper than she expected. Because in Anita's mind, she deserved Sandra's life more than Sandra did. One evening, after yet another visit where Victor barely acknowledged her presence, Anita walked home with bitterness burning in her chest. What had once been envy had grown into something heavier, something dangerous. For 4 nights, she couldn't sleep. She lay awake imagining herself in Sandra's clothes, walking through that mansion, riding in those cars, being addressed as Madame Victor. The fantasy replayed endlessly in her mind. She prayed. She fasted. She tried subtle flirting. She tried patience. Nothing worked. And then she crossed a line she never believed she could. Anita decided to visit an herbalist, a man known on the outskirts of Lagos for spiritual works people spoke about in whispers. The kind that bound hearts, broke marriages, and rewrote destinies. She walked there with trembling breath and pounding heart, her mind clouded by envy. All she could think about was the life Sandra lived, the life she believed was meant for her. The herbalist was an old man with calm eyes and a voice that sounded like dry leaves brushing against each other. He studied her for a long moment before speaking. "Why have you come?" Anita swallowed. Fear crept up her spine, but desire crushed it down. "I want Victor," she said. "I want him to leave his wife and love only me." The old man sighed softly. "This kind of work binds destinies," he warned. "If I do it, you must never leave him. Even if he hurts you. Even if he destroys you. Once done, it cannot be undone." The warning brushed her like a light breeze, easy to ignore. "Do it," Anita said quickly. "I'm not afraid." The herbalist shook his head, pity in his eyes. "I will not be blamed later. Once I throw the charm into the river, your life will be tied to his until death." "I accept," Anita said without hesitation. And so the ritual began. Red and black threads were tied together. Strange chants filled the air. Victor's name was sealed inside a small clay pot. Burning herbs thickened the room with smoke, and Anita felt something unseen coil around her, tight and irreversible. When it was done, the herbalist wrapped the charm in cloth. "It must be thrown into the river tonight," he said. "After that, there is no turning back." Anita watched him walk away with it, her heart pounding with triumph. She didn't know she had just sealed her own fate. The spell took hold quickly, almost overnight. Victor grew distant from Sandra. Cold. Irritable. Angry for no reason. He stopped sleeping in their bedroom. Stopped coming home. Stopped pretending. One morning, without warning, he said flatly, "Sandra, leave my house." She froze. "What? What did I do?" He didn't answer. He dragged her bags outside and slammed the door in her face. Sandra cried the entire journey to her mother's house, humiliated, broken, still too ashamed to confess the truth about her marriage. Meanwhile, Anita waited. And Victor did call, but not with love. Not with warmth. "Come to my house," he said, his voice strange and urgent. Anita believed the charm had worked perfectly. She dressed in her finest gown, copied Sandra's gentle smile, and walked in with excitement dancing in her chest. But the house felt cold. Victor's eyes were darker, harder. Still, she was thrilled. Within a week, Victor married her. She entered the mansion not as a visitor, but as Madame Victor. The charm did not bring love. The first beating came before the honeymoon. He smashed her phone because she asked for the Wi-Fi password. When she cried, he hit her again, harder. There were no gifts afterward. No apologies. Only curses and threats. She told herself it was stress. That he would calm down. He didn't. The beatings came daily, for speaking, for asking questions, for breathing too loudly. He slapped her in the living room. Punched her in the kitchen. One afternoon, he dragged her into the compound and beat her in front of the security guard. The charm had bound him to her body. Not to her peace. Not to her safety. Not to her happiness. And the more she resisted, the worse he became. One night, shaking and bruised, Anita ran back to the herbalist's shrine. She collapsed to the floor, sobbing. "Please undo it," she begged. I'm dying. The old man looked at her sadly. I warned you. Please, she screamed. I beg you. Unless you can retrieve the charm from the bottom of the river, he said gently, you are bound to him. Her world shattered. Anita walked out wrapped in dirty bandages, a shadow of the woman who once envied her friend's life. For the first time, she understood the truth. She had not stolen Sandra's blessings. She had stolen Sandra's suffering. Under the harsh Lego sun, every step sent pain through her ribs, but the regret in her chest was worse. Victor was no longer a dream or an obsession. He was a monster. And she had tied herself to him with her own hands. She caught her reflection in a shop window, swollen lip, bruised cheek, hollow eyes, and knew exactly where she needed to go. Sandra was back in Surreylir, living in a small self-contained room, rebuilding her catering business. She had lost weight, but gained peace. A quiet strength that made her glow more than any gold Victor ever bought. Anita took a bike to her area. People stared at her wounds. She didn't care. When she reached Sandra's door, she collapsed to her knees. Sandra, please open. Sandra stepped out holding a bowl, and froze. Anita lifted her tear-streaked face. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I wanted your life. I took your husband. I did charms. I forced everything. Her voice broke. And now. I'm dying inside. Please, forgive me. Sandra froze. Before her knelt the same woman who had been her sister for years. The same woman who betrayed her. The same woman who stole her home. The same woman who laughed behind her back. Now Anita was broken, bleeding, bandaged, shaking like a wounded animal. Sandra quietly set the bowl aside and helped her to her feet. She didn't hug her. But she didn't push her away either. Anita covered her face with her hands, sobbing. He beats me every day, she whispered. Even outside. Even in front of people. I tried to run. I tried to break the charm. The herbalist said he can't. Sandra inhaled deeply. She stood still for a long moment, then spoke softly. Anita. I forgive you. Anita broke down completely, her body sliding against the wall. But, Sandra continued gently, we can never be friends again. Anita's crying stopped. Her heart dropped. You broke something that cannot be repaired, Sandra said calmly. I can't walk with you the way we used to. But I won't carry your sin in my heart anymore. It was forgiveness, with peace. And with finality. Sandra turned and walked back into her room. She didn't look back. Standing alone outside the door, Anita realized she had lost the one thing she truly had, the only person who ever loved her sincerely. She returned to Victor's house because she had no choice. The charm pulled at her chest like a chain. Each time she tried to leave, sharp pain gripped her heart, warning her that death was near. So she went back, to the same mansion she once admired. The front door was wide open. Music blasted. Laughter filled the air. Victor was hosting another party. Women in short dresses danced around him. Friends drank, smoked, and shouted over loud games. When Victor saw her bruised, bandaged, hollow, he didn't pause. He didn't ask where she had gone. He didn't care. He pointed toward the kitchen. Go and serve my guests. And like a prisoner, she obeyed. Her hands shook as she carried trays of food. She poured drinks while whispers followed her. Is this not Madame Victor? Why she look like this? Some laughed. Some pitied her. No one helped. Victor openly groped other women in front of her. He dragged one into the bedroom while the music continued. Anita kept serving wine, tears silently dripping onto the tray. When she accidentally dropped a glass, Victor slapped her so hard she fell to her knees. The guests watched. No one moved. The herbalist's words echoed in her mind. If you try to leave him, you will die. And in that moment, Anita understood. She was no longer a wife. No longer a rival. No longer a friend. She was a prisoner in a golden mansion, punished by the very life she once envied. Later that night, as the party faded and she cleaned the mess with trembling hands, her eyes fell on a broken bottle on the floor. Her tears dropped onto the scattered glass. The husband she desired. The marriage she stole. The life she coveted. All of it had become her curse. From that day on, Anita no longer hoped for rescue. She no longer dreamed of escape. She no longer prayed for love. She simply survived breath by breath, day by day, trapped in a marriage that glittered from afar but bled her dry up close. This was her destiny now. A destiny she chose. A destiny she could never undo. And somewhere else in Lagos, Sandra continued healing, growing, and rebuilding her life, living proof that peace is the true luxury, and jealousy is a debt that always gets paid in full. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect. How many times have we admired someone else's life without knowing what they endure behind closed doors? Not every smile means happiness. Not every luxury means peace. And not every perfect couple is truly in love. Thank you so much, Besties Redheart. To my returning viewers, thank you for your constant support and love. And if you're watching and haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and join the family. Every like, comment, and share helps this channel grow and encourages me to keep bringing you powerful African stories every single week. Let's hit 10K together. I love you all. See you in the next story. Waving hand.